Chapter 6: How to Write Potent Copy. Headlines. The headline is the most important element in most advertisements. It is the telegram that decides whether the reader will continue to read the copy. On average, 5 times as many people read the headline as read the body copy. When you have written your headline, you have spent 80 cents out of your dollar. If you haven't done some selling in your headline, you have wasted 80% of your client's money. The worst of all sins is to run an advertisement without a headline. Such headless wonders still exist. I don't envy the copywriter who submits one to me. A change of headline can make a difference of 10 to 1 in sales. I never write fewer than 16 headlines for a single advertisement, and I observe certain guides in writing them. 1. The headline is the ticket on the meat. Use it to flag down the readers who are prospects for the kind of product you are advertising. If you are selling a remedy for bladder weakness, display the words bladder weakness in your headline. They catch the eye of everyone who suffers from this inconvenience. If you want mothers to read your advertisement, display mothers in your headline, and so on. Conversely, do not say anything in your headline that might exclude readers who could be prospects for your product. Thus, if you are advertising something that can be used equally well by men and women, don't slant your headline at women alone. It would frighten men away. 2. Every headline should appeal to the reader's self-interest. It should promise a benefit, as in my headline for Helena Rubinstein's Hormone Cream, How Women Over 35 Can Look Younger. 3. Always try to inject news into your headlines because the consumer is always on the lookout for new products, or new ways to use an old product, or new improvements in an old one. The 2 most powerful words you can use in a headline are free and new. You can seldom use free, but you can almost always use new, if you try hard enough. 4. Other words and phrases that work wonders include how to, suddenly, now, announcing, introducing, it's here, just arrived, important development, improvement, amazing, sensational, remarkable, revolutionary, startling, miracle, magic, offer, quick, easy, wanted, challenge, advice to, the truth about, compare, bargain, hurry, last chance. Don't turn up your nose at these cliches. They may be shop-worn, but they work. That is why you see them so often in the headlines of mail-order advertisers and others who can measure the results of their ads. Headlines can be strengthened by including emotional words such as darling, love, fear, proud, friend, and baby. One of the most provocative advertisements that came out of our agency showed a girl in a bathtub talking to her lover on the telephone. The headline, "Darling, I'm having the most extraordinary experience. I'm head over heels in Dove." 5. Since 5 times as many people read the headline as read the body copy, it's important that these glancers at least be told what brand is being advertised. That is why you should always include the brand name in your headlines. 6. Include your selling promise in your headline. This usually requires long headlines. When the New York University School of Retailing ran headline tests with the cooperation of a big department store, they found that headlines of 10 words or longer containing news and information consistently sold more merchandise than short ones. Headlines containing 6 to 12 words pull more coupon returns than short headlines, and there is no significant difference between the readership of 12-word headlines and that of 3-word headlines. The best headline I ever wrote contained 18 words. At 60 miles an hour, the loudest noise in the new Rolls-Royce comes from the electric clock. 7. People are more likely to read your body copy if your headline arouses their curiosity. So you should end your headline with a lure to read on. 8. Some copywriters write tricky headlines, puns, literary allusions, and other obscurities. This is a sin. In the average newspaper, your headline has to compete for attention with 350 others. Research has shown that readers travel so fast through this jungle that they don't stop to decipher the meaning of obscure headlines. Your headline must telegraph what you want to say, and it must do so in plain language. Don't play games with the reader. In 1960, the Times Literary Supplement attacked the whimsical tradition in British advertising, calling it self-indulgent, a kind of middle-class private joke, apparently designed to amuse the advertiser and his client. Amen. When the chief engineer at the Rolls-Royce factory read my headline, he shook his head sadly and said, It is time we did something about that damned clock. 9. Research shows that it is dangerous to use negatives in headlines. If, for example, you write "Our salt contains no arsenic," many readers will miss the negative and go away with the impression that you wrote, "Our salt contains arsenic." 10. Avoid blind headlines, the kind that mean nothing unless you read the body copy underneath them. Most people don't. Body copy. When you sit down to write your body copy, pretend that you are talking to the woman on your right at a dinner party. She has asked you, "I am thinking of buying a new car. Which would you recommend?" Write your copy as if you were answering that question. 1. Don't beat about the bush. Go straight to the point. Avoid analogies of the "just as so too" variety. Dr. Gallup has demonstrated that these two-stage arguments are generally misunderstood. 2. Avoid superlatives, generalizations, and platitudes. Be specific and factual. Be enthusiastic, friendly, and memorable. Don't be a bore. Tell the truth, but make the truth fascinating. How long should your copy be? It depends on the product. If you are advertising chewing gum, there isn't much to tell, so make your copy short. If, on the other hand, you are advertising a product with many qualities to recommend it, write long copy. The more you tell, the more you sell. There is a widespread belief that people won't read long copy. Nothing could be farther from the truth. Claude Hopkins once wrote 5 pages of solid text for Schlitz beer. In a few months, Schlitz moved up from 5th place to 1st. I once wrote a page of solid text for Good Luck Margarine, with most gratifying results. Research shows that readership falls off rapidly up to 50 words of copy, but drops very little between 50 and 500 words. In my first Rolls-Royce advertisement, I used 719 words, piling one fascinating fact on another. In the last paragraph I wrote, "People who feel diffident about driving a Rolls-Royce can buy a Bentley." Judging from the number of motorists who picked up the word diffident and bandied it about, I concluded that the advertisement was thoroughly read. In the next one, I used 1,400 words. Every advertisement should be a complete sales pitch for your product. It is unrealistic to assume that consumers will read a series of advertisements for the same product. You should shoot the works in every ad on the assumption that it is the only chance you will ever have to sell your product to the reader. Now or never. Dr. Charles Edwards of the Graduate School of Retailing at New York University says, "The more facts you tell, the more you sell. An advertisement's chance for success invariably increases as the number of pertinent merchandise facts included in the advertisement increases." In my first advertisement for Puerto Rico's Operation Bootstrap, I used 961 words and persuaded Beardsley Rumel to sign them. 14,000 readers clipped the coupon from this ad, and scores of them later established factories in Puerto Rico. The greatest professional satisfaction I have had is seeing the prosperity in Puerto Rican communities that had lived on the edge of starvation for 400 years before I wrote that ad. Had I confined myself to a few vacuous generalities, nothing would have happened. We have even managed to get people to read long copy about gasoline. One of our Shell advertisements contained 617 words, and 22% of male readers read more than half of them. Vic Schwab tells the story of Max Hart, of Hart, Schaffner, and Marx, and his advertising manager, George L. Dyer, arguing about long copy. Dyer said, "I'll bet you $10 I can write a newspaper page of solid type, and you'd read every word of it." Hart scoffed. Dyer replied, "I'll only tell you the headline. This page is all about Max Hart. Advertisers who put coupons in their ads know that short copy doesn't sell. In split-run tests, long copy invariably outsells short copy. 3. You should always include testimonials in your copy. Readers find it easier to believe the endorsement of a fellow consumer than the puffery of an anonymous copywriter. Jim Young, one of the best copywriters alive, says, "Every advertiser has the same problem, to be believed. The mail-order man knows nothing so potent for this purpose as the testimonial, yet the general advertiser seldom uses it. Testimonials from celebrities get remarkably high readership, and if they are honestly written, they do not seem to provoke incredulity. The better known the celebrity, the more readers you attract. We have featured Queen Elizabeth and Winston Churchill in Come to Britain advertisements, and we persuaded Mrs. Roosevelt to make television commercials for Good Luck Margarine. When we advertise charge accounts for Sears Roebuck, we reproduced the credit card of Ted Williams, recently traded by Boston to Sears. Sometimes you can cast your entire copy in the form of a testimonial. My first advertisement for Austin Cars took the form of a letter from an anonymous diplomat who was sending his son to Groton with money he had saved by driving in Austin. A well-aimed combination of snobbery and economy. Unfortunately, a sharp-eyed Time editor guessed that I was the anonymous diplomat and asked the headmaster of Groton to comment. Dr. Crocker was so cross that I decided to send my son to Hotchkiss. 4. Another profitable approach is to give the reader helpful advice or service. It hooks about 75% more readers than copy that deals entirely with the product. One of our Rinso advertisements told housewives how to remove stains. It was better read and better remembered than any detergent ad in history. Unfortunately, it forgot to feature Rinso's main selling promise, that Rinso washes whiter. For this reason, it should never have run. 5. I have never admired the Bell's Letter School of Advertising, which reached its pompous peak in Theodore F. McManus's famous advertisement for Cadillac, The Penalty of Leadership, and Ned Jordan's classic Somewhere West of Laramie. 40 years ago, the business community seems to have been impressed by these pieces of purple prose, but I have always thought them absurd. They did not give the reader a single fact. I share Claude Hopkins' view that fine writing is a distinct disadvantage. So is unique literary style. They take attention away from the subject. 6. Avoid bombast. Raymond Rubicam's famous slogan for Squibb, "The priceless ingredient of every product is the honor and integrity of its maker," reminds me of my father's advice. When a company boasts about its integrity or a woman about her virtue, avoid the former and cultivate the latter. 7. Unless you have some special reason to be solemn and pretentious, write your copy in the colloquial language your customers use in everyday conversation. It is a mistake to use highfalutin language when you advertise to uneducated people. I once used the word obsolete in a headline, only to discover that 43% of housewives had no idea what it meant. In another headline, I used ineffable, only to discover that I didn't know what it meant myself. Many copywriters, however, err on the side of underestimating the educational level of the population. Philip Hauser of the University of Chicago notes that the increasing exposure of the population to formal schooling can be expected to affect important changes in the style of advertising. Messages aimed at the average American, assuming he has had less than a grade school education, are likely to find themselves with a declining clientele. Meanwhile, all copywriters should read Dr. Rudolf Flesch's Art of Plain Talk. It will persuade them to use short words, short sentences, short paragraphs, and highly personal copy. Aldous Huxley, who once tried his hand at writing advertisements, concluded that any trace of literariness in an advertisement is fatal to its success. Advertisement writers may not be lyrical or obscure or in any way esoteric. They must be universally intelligible. A good advertisement has this in common with drama and oratory, that it must be immediately comprehensible and directly moving. 8. Resist the temptation to write the kind of copy that wins awards. Most of the campaigns that produce results never win awards because they don't draw attention to themselves. The juries that bestow awards are never given enough information about the results of the advertisements they judge. In the absence of such data, they rely on opinion, which is always warped toward the highbrow. 9. Good copywriters have always resisted the temptation to entertain. Their achievement lies in the number of new products they get off to a flying start. Claude Hopkins was to advertising what Escoffier was to cooking. Technically, the supreme master. Next, I would place Raymond Rubicam, George Cecil, and James Webb Young, all of whom lacked Hopkins' ruthless salesmanship, but made up for it with honesty, breadth of work, and the ability to write civilized copy when the occasion required it. After them, I would place John Capples, the mail-order specialist from whom I have learned much. These giants wrote their advertisements for newspapers and magazines. It is still too early to identify the best writers for television. That's it for today. If you enjoyed this video, you might want to check our link in the description, where you'll find many other fundamental advertising books in different languages. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more persuasion and marketing-related content. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again in the next video.